This is Navigating Cyber Risk podcast with me, John Riley, and George Usey as your hosts. Join us as we explore the challenges faced by executives as they grapple with new and ever-changing cybersecurity mandates. Welcome to Navigating Cyber Risk with your host, John Riley, where we explore the challenges faced by executives as they grapple with new cybersecurity mandates. Today, we've got an amazing guest who has been the founder of 7 successful companies, with Note Effect being the latest venture. Resides in the scenic waters off the Chesapeake Bay. He enjoys boating, fishing, and crabbing in his leisure time. He's also, even though he doesn't look like it, recently welcomed 3 new grandchildren in the last 2 years. So today I would like to welcome today's guest, Jay Tokosch. Welcome, Jay.
Hey, thanks, John. It's a pleasure to be here.
Glad you could take the time here, and take time off the boat and join us.
Yeah. Yeah, I wish I could boat all day long, right? That could be a good life. Nothing wrong with that.
Aye, Captain. That's that. I'm right there with you. I'm a sailor at heart. Maybe a pirate. I haven't figured out which one yet. Maybe with the beard. White beard.
There you go. The beard. Yeah, sure.
We'll see.
You'll be Whitebeard, the pirate. There you go. I like it.
So we're just going to jump in here with like our lead question of how to get this started, right? Can you tell me what you think the difference is between cybersecurity and cyber risk?
Yeah, cybersecurity to me is protecting it, but before it happens. And cyber risk is the risk that you take when you don't protect your data. And I think that's probably, to me, that would define the difference between the two of them.
And what kind of risks do you see that come out of that side of things?
Data is the probably, more important than anything out there. I just read something the other day where they were saying that Tesla isn't a car company, it's a data collection company. And I was like, wow, I never thought about it that way. But yeah, it collects all this data when you're driving, it collects all this data that you're doing, it's nothing but that. That's very valuable. And to me, if you're not protecting that value for both your own company and the customers you serve, you put you put all of that at risk. Boy, I just wouldn't even want to answer to that. I wouldn't answer for that if you lose it and someone attacks you.
It really is amazing how much data we give to these companies, and with just the trust, and a simple click, right? I mean, we truly give them a bunch of data, personal emails, personal connections, access to those emails, and yeah, that's just one facet of how the relationships are built. But yeah, the data defines us. It's not defines us, but we definitely define the data, but it's definitely being used for things. Protecting it is absolutely critical when it comes to that. So I agree with you.
Well, and if you're like me, even on the personal side, right, outside of being CEO of a company, I get mail, I get emails. Hey, from just my dermatologist the other day. Hey, we got hacked, basically. I'm paraphrasing. We got hacked, and your data was included in that. And here's what we did to stop it, and here's what we did. Great. Now they have all what will they use that data for? I don't know. But clearly, if it's valuable and people are hacking it, it needs to be protected. And we all have to be cognizant of this, new world that we live in today.
Yeah, I actually had an identity theft happen with a bank that lost my data, and I was traveling at the time and was getting multiple hits on my account to try and open accounts and everything. Those have since slowed down, but it really is that disheartening feeling that you get when you realize that something like that is happening.
You definitely feel violated, right?
And it's one thing to get the email that says, "Hey, by the way, we lost your data." It's the second thing to actually be the target of the attacks that are happening. That's the rough part.
Yep, no question. And I'm sure we all do this. Once we get that, you got to read through it, and then they'll give you options to react. Right? You can go on and take your credit scores and block that so that they can't, use and open up new accounts and do all these different things in doing that. But yeah, it's important to have due diligence both for your internal staff and for your customers. And we take it very seriously for sure.
Excellent. So, what would you say is the biggest or the most significant cyber threat that's facing most companies today? Is it just losing data? Is it, insiders? Is it
It's a good question. And it's one that we did a lot of research on because we have a product ourselves that is collecting content. And it's not only collecting the content, but it's collecting the people's notes, interactions with the content, the audio, the whole nine yards. And we built it, and I was like, "This is fantastic! I love it." And then I started thinking about, "Oh my God, I just now opened up Pandora's box because I now, where normally through a business meeting or whatever it would be, that content is being shared. I now am recording it. I give them access to go back into it. I give them access to interact with it. It's always there for them. They can retrieve it anytime that they want. They can search for it. This is fantastic. But I just opened Pandora's box because that also lends the way for them to be able to share that and do things with it. So I did a lot of research and I found out that, 67% of the time your company confidential information gets shared outside of your company comes from your own internal staff. Now, what's interesting about that is that it's not necessarily nefarious. It's not necessarily that they're trying, that you have an employee who is trying to, you know, sell that information to another competitor or do those types of things. Most of the time, the research was telling us that they didn't know the level of confidentiality on the the content that was shared. They thought that they needed to share it with another employee within the organization to get their work done or something of that nature, right? The problem with that, though, is as I looked at it, was hey, they're still sharing confidential information and there's no control over it. That person could be sharing it with someone else. A perfect example is that, let's say you built a new product and you're a manufacturer, you built a new product and you're going through prototype stages and you sit down with some of your executives and you show them what's going on and they talk about some of the engineering that goes along with this. And this is actually sort of a real story, but I'll leave out the names. And they shared it. So after the meeting was over with and that information was, confidential about this new product, they went that one of those managers went back to one of their engineers and said, "Hey, this was going on during that product. What do you think about this? Let me share this information with you." And of course, they shared it with them. And that engineer then sat down with his other engineers that were you know, in the area of the cubicle where he was, and he talked that over with them because, wanted to all do that, right? And then those engineers were, just happened to mention, this new product that was coming out to some friends at a barbecue. Well, whoa, what just happened there? And the CEO of the company found out that his top competitor now knows about this that's coming out and has started a campaign. What happened there? Innocent, right? But yet you just had a violation and it came from your own internal group. And so while we can block hackers all we want and in doing that, that actually represents a small amount compared to your own internal staff. And again, that wasn't nefarious. They were trying to help. They thought that that was necessary to do that, but the content that was supposed to be confidential wasn't protected, and that became a problem.
and it happens like that a ton of times. I mean, social engineering or, I mean, the barbecues, I mean, any number of places where, with confidentiality or anything else. I mean, it can become a considerable problem. But new product dev and betting your company on something like that can definitely cause some issues along the way. So
Yeah. And it's hard to recover, right? So
very much so.
so there's your story. I mean, it's
Excellent. Well, so as a CEO, how do you think other CEOs should prioritize their cyber risk?
I think, first off, as part of their HR package, that has to be thoroughly discussed with the staff one. Here's our processes. Here's what we believe in. This is important. You've got to communicate with your employees. And if you don't do that, and we're 100% virtual. So I have employees, globally. And in the EU, I mean, they have, some different rules and regulations there. But even here, still, we need to protect ourselves, and we need to communicate with the employees how important it is to protect that and do that. So that's the way that we're handling it today. I think at a minimum, the CEOs of companies need to do that. I've seen other people. We're sort of in a startup mode for this point, and we do use our own product for our own meetings and things of that nature, which helps protect our content quite a bit. But I think at a minimum, they need to do that. And I do see other CEOs. I know the last company, when I sold it, as we got into it, they would have regular quarterly sort of trainings that would test us afterwards and do that. Great idea, expensive idea, but great idea. And if you can afford that, I think that's fantastic.
I mean, I think the prices are coming down. I mean, as it becomes more common, that's definitely something that employees have always been a high risk endeavor, right? I mean, no matter
Right.
whether you're talking even, that's why we do background checks. That's why we do a number of these things to try and protect ourselves from making stupid mistakes. We'll just put it that way, right? Yeah, I mean, so then keeping track of that and making sure that the employees are doing the right things, even when somebody's not looking, is important, and having that training and being able to fall back on that is always important.
Right.
Okay, so let me ask you this. I mean, so you're in AI, right? So to
Right.
a degree, and so let me ask you. So what emerging trends do you believe will have a profound impact on cybersecurity over the near future?
So AI is a double-edged sword, right? Because with AI, you've seen the stuff with deepfakes. I've talked about that a million times over. It's easy enough to use AI to fake an employee, fake different things to be able to get information. And that's the nefarious side of that, right? So that's doing that. But also, we're looking at it and we're using AI to protect us as well. We're looking at using an AI agent that is looking at unusual activity and things of that nature. From there. So I think AI, like I said, it's a double-edged sword. It can be on the bad side of things and it can be on the really good side of things. I'm choosing to look at it from the good side to protecting us and looking at different ways and things that we're doing with it from an AI agent standpoint that we've trained to be that protector.
Which is that's amazing. I mean, we'll need to talk about that some more. So let me ask you this, though. I mean, put yourself in the shoes of the CEO that just found out that they've been hacked, whether it's first thing in the morning or whatever. When that what does that journey look like to you? How does that feel? What
Yeah, knock on wood. I haven't quite been there. We've definitely had some things that were scares, and we turned out to be okay. And that fear alone was enough to make me sweat and raise the hair on the back of my neck. But I think if that happens, right, you've got to be calm. You've got to be able to figure out, okay, where did it happen? What did we lose? How can we recover? I've got a good team here, and this team came from our technical side, came from Cisco Systems. They have good backgrounds. They have great pedigrees. So as a CEO, it's hard for any CEO to keep up on this, whether this is your business or it isn't your business, with all the things that are coming out and the ways that they're trying to scam you and security risks itself. From that standpoint. So you got to rely on your good people internally to be able to also help you for protection from that standpoint in doing that. But I think if that happens to you, you know, okay, that's not good. But how do I recover? And you know what? You should probably start to build some sort of, now that I think about it as we're talking, some sort of recovery plans. If this could possibly happen, what will I do? And have that you can refer back to when that does happen. I'm going to make a mental note here to go over my team with that because I hadn't thought about that, but it is something. So you're not just reacting, right? You're calmly saying, okay, look, these are the steps we're going to take to get through this. And my team may already have that and hasn't shared it with me. I'm hoping that that's the case. But if not, and I'm just being straight up honest here, if not, we will get that now, and we'll have that. We do have that for our customers' content, and we do have that plan in place, because some of the contracts that we've signed, we had to have that, and we were forced to have that. But internally, nah, not so much. But it is something that we need to do.
Well, and so basically, what I heard is that you're actually making those cyber risk choices for yourself, right? I mean, so the customer data is 100% protected. You know, you've got all the protections around it. You've got the, you know, you've got what you are not just contractually, but what's right. You know, I mean, protect your customer data and to make sure that that those things are done. But then your internal data, it's not quite as important. I mean, don't get me wrong. Your internal data is important, but I mean, versus losing the trust of a customer, if you were to lose a few documents or something, it's a completely different story on your internal side versus losing a customer document, right? And so I think that a lot of customers need to go through that journey of understanding what data that they have and what data is important enough to protect in that way and what the cost is for doing that. You don't have to have the same policy across the board, but you at least have to make those conscious decisions of what those look like, right?
Right.
And so I think I commend you because I think that you've done a great job of at least classifying the data. Sure, you can go back and take a look and see what the business requirements are, and I'm glad that was an awareness that you recognize.
Yeah, no, there's two areas immediately that came to my mind from what we're doing. And those are the areas that I'll focus on. The other stuff's not a big deal if it ever, whatever. Nothing there that I have to be as due diligent about. But, we've always known that we had to be due diligent with our customers' data because of what we do. And, that's really been our focus. And sometimes that's with a startup, you got to pick and choose. And, obviously we chose our customers first, focused on that in there, come back to your own stuff later on. That's kind of where we're at now.
That is the typical startup mode, right? I mean,
Yeah.
and we see that a lot from our business standpoint, where the cybersecurity gets second billing, and that's why we talk about the priority of where should that fit. Obviously, make money first. I mean, that's always get to that point of get the money coming in, be able to afford,
Right.
But we depending on what kind of system you're going after, right? I mean, there's certain industries that you can't go after without having everything in place. For instance, if you're doing, HIPAA qualified, hospitals or something, you got to do
Sure.
HIPAA first. So it just really depends on what regulations you have to
Right.
as well. So that's always a fun journey for people to understand too. All right. So what are you working on that you're most excited about right now?
We have a couple of things in the pipeline. We're working on a product that we've had this product already in place, and we have a patent on it with regards to content protection. So the content protection for this is, you know, let me go back and talk about what we do first. We take content that is normally presented in a business meeting, whether or in education and in a classroom, or whether you go to an event in a session. And that content generally is up on the screen for you to watch, and everything that you do from there is make your notes and everything that you do is all separate from that. So we bind those two together. We broadcast that content down to your digital device, phone, tablet, laptop, whatever, and we allow you to interact with it. You can make notes on top of it, favorite the stuff, do all these different things. And we have a nice patent on that piece of it. But then that's all kept together, right? And this is what I was talking about before. So you can refer back to it, pull it back up as many times as you want. Well, one of the things that we realized is that it was easy enough to block printing, emailing, downloading that content. But because 72% of the time that content has some confidentiality portion to it, we needed to protect it. And we needed to protect it from screenshots, screen recordings, and screen sharings, like the Zoom meeting we're doing right now. Hell, if I have permissions to go into that content, I could just pull it up and share it with you, John, and nobody's going to know that I did that, right? And so we figured out a way to be able to block, detect, and report that information if we detect it and they want us to report it or block it. And we've moved that into the mobile phone piece. So we're excited about that because we have a customer who is in really big need for that. And they love it on the laptop, they love it on their computers and doing that, and they want to be able to give access, which they haven't been able to do on their phones before. And now we're going to be able to protect them on their phones and doing that. We have a patent on that piece too, to be able to do that. But I'm excited about that. We're also adding in as a part of that something that we've also had before with our Shield Protect product that will protect you from a mobile standpoint of downloading an app that could, totally wreck your system. So it's real-time app scanning, at the point of install. It's automatic blocking, intelligent warnings, from that standpoint. It's static and behavior analysis that goes along with it. And then it's sort of reputation scoring as we go along. And then the app is set up to periodically just sort of scan for unusual type of activity that could possibly be taking any of your data that your mobile phone has access to and doing something with that. So we're excited about that because it's been two separate products. We're now joining those two together and putting it and making it available for the mobile phone.
I mean, that's pretty amazing. I have to say that between the security part of it, being able to stop the screenshots and everything else. I mean, that's amazing. I'm glad to hear that there's more products like that are coming out that help protect the data and take that data as seriously as we do. So that's awesome.
Yeah,
So
absolutely. I mean, the mobile phone has always been, look, you
yeah.
know, and most people access their data through the mobile phones, not always on the computer anymore. And so, these customers have had these situations where, federal government, for example, you can't take your phone and put it in a locker, you go inside, that's great. But then if you need to get in touch with that person, that's a problem because they can't easily get, to them, and they may need their phone for other things. So you want to be able to use that technology, but you still want to be able to protect the content and protect the phone. Uh, and you can't rely on the employee to do that for you. So, hence what we're doing.
So now tell me more about you. Like, how did you get here? I mean, this is your seventh successful company. I mean, tell me a bit more about that.
Yeah, all of my companies have been centered around technology, mostly in the software. Although I did have a hardware stint there for a short period of time. They say that entrepreneurs build products and services around their own needs, and certainly that was the case for me. My prior company, Core Apps, we built mobile applications for the event sector, right? Conferences, trade shows, both corporate associations, for profit. We had some of the biggest shows in the world as customers. CES, most people recognize that one. There was an early customer of ours and a great customer. We were in Apple's top 5 developers when I sold the company, but loved that. And what happened was I happened to go to a trade show, and I was looking for specific booths and exhibitors at that trade show, and I was trying to use their paper map. And I found out that, hey, that paper map was printed out a month before the show happened. And those exhibitors move around. Not the big guys, but a lot of exhibitors move around. They condense space and they do all these things. And so it's not exactly accurate. Well, that's a problem, and I want to know what time sessions go off and things of that nature. So came up with the idea of building that app, and we did really well with it for 11 years and selling that. Same thing with Note Effect. Note Effect was one of those for me where I had the idea of putting all the content together because I would be as a CEO, back to back meetings all day long. And when I'm done, I'm taking this pad of paper and I'm trying to figure out my own handwriting, and I'm trying to run those initiatives through that I said I would do during my meetings. And I was failing. I just wasn't doing really well. And my youngest son, who was home from college, was studying for a test on our and had on our kitchen table all this all these papers with his notes written on them all over the place. And I looked at it and I went, he's got the same problem I have, except different content. And I started thinking about that and I started researching and I researched that the way that we do things today is passive and it's the least effective way to learn. The best way to learn is interactive. So how do we take that content and make it interactive? And that's what brought me to that from that standpoint. And we used a lot of AI in there, right? We look at things like, engagement, participation, because we want to help and understand what people want and interest levels and at-risk students and all of those things. And so that's how it got started. And I started in the education space. And because of being so well entrenched in the event space, people that were in the event space started hitting me up and saying, we want to use this for an event. Why can't we use this? And I'm like, oh, we call people teachers and students. I don't think that's going to go over. I need to modify it. But the base product is still the same. It's still taking that content, making it interactive, making it so that you can go back to it, search it, find it, and do all those things. And it's served us really well. I'm excited about what we do. And as soon as I started dealing with content, then I started realizing how much I needed to protect that content. And
Yep.
hence, where we were with the patents and the things that we do. And it led me down that road. That wasn't the road I started out on. I was started out on the knowledge retention road, with the content and doing all that. But I realized I had to also protect it. And that's why we started going down that road.
So, if you were to give our audience members like one action item out of this, what's one piece of advice that you would give them?
Okay. As an entrepreneur or
Yeah.
as an entrepreneur, I coach a lot of entrepreneurs. And one of the first pieces of advice that I give them is, look, make sure that your significant other is on board with this. I've had highs, I've had lows. If my wife wasn't on board with this, I wouldn't be here. Okay. You need that person to support you. And it doesn't have to be your wife. It could be your mother. It could be, another relative. It could be whoever's close to you, right? From that standpoint, you want to make sure of that. And then the next thing I would tell you to do is there's a book out there called The Mom Test. And I found that later on in my entrepreneurial career. It's a short read. The gist of this book is don't ask your mom about the idea that you have for your new entrepreneurial venture because she loves you. She's going to tell you it's great. You should do it. You do all that, right? She's not looking at it objectively. And that's not a great way to get started, right? The mom test teaches you how to ask the right questions, who to go to. And really, at the end of the day, it teaches you how to go back and sell to those people as customers. Right. And I found that very intriguing how this person, and I can't remember the author's name, put that all together. And I've recommended that to a lot of the entrepreneurs that I've counseled, and they've all come back to me and said, I love this book. It's the greatest thing. From there, man, I've put together that works for me a process that takes me through whether I'm going to follow through with this idea and actually do anything with it. Because I'm one of those people who gets up in the middle of the night, writes down ideas on a piece of paper, because if I don't, I'm not going to sleep, right? The next morning, get back up and I look back over that. And a lot of times, it goes back in the trash can. It doesn't go anywhere, right? It was just something I was thinking of. But if it does go past that, I built a process for myself, and I think others should do the same thing if they want to do that. That took me through, and the mom test, by the way, is one of those processes. If I have that idea, I go back and reread the book and write these things down. And I take myself through that process. And it's like 7 steps before I get to the point where I'm actually going to put money behind it and do something with it.
Put time and money and love into it, right? Yeah,
Absolutely.
that's what it takes. I think you already answered my other question here, but I'm gonna ask it anyways. I mean, if you could go back in time and give your younger self advice, what would it be?
I think if I go back and I look at it, when I first started out, I didn't know I was an entrepreneur. I think a lot of entrepreneurs actually think that too. I just was doing things. I never thought much about that. And I think as I look at it now, building the process was the best thing for me. I would say that I wish I had that early on because I may have learned and wouldn't have wasted time and money back then. But then again, if I look at that and I say, well, I wouldn't have learned to do this process if I hadn't gone through that, right? So that's sort of a double-edged sword from that standpoint in going there. But Also, just to realizing what it really takes to do this, you have to be all in. If you're only half in, I'm going to try and work my job to do this. Well, okay, but make that plan that here's here's the goals I'm going to set for myself to hit in doing that. Because a lot of people, if they have that fall back, as soon as it gets hard over here, they just fall back and they never get through it. Sometimes the worst times that you have leads to the best times that you have, and you appreciate it more.
Yep. And so fail early, fail often, learn the lesson, take the lesson, and then move on and make it part of your life. And everybody has their own experience to fall back on.
Yeah, absolutely.
I love it. So where can people find you? I mean, how would you like people to reach out to you?
Yeah, the best way to reach out to me is via email. I check that regularly. I'm always typed with my phone, so that's the best way to get there. You can also find out a little bit more about what I do from our website, and I know you guys are going to post that. So those are the best ways to get in touch with me. And whether you're looking to become an entrepreneur and you just want to hit me up on a couple of things, I'm happy to answer that. Or if you're looking to, and you need protection, like we talked about, hey, happy to discuss that with you too and see if we're a good fit and we can kind of work from there.
Excellent. All right. Well, I thank you, Joe. Thank you, Jay. I appreciate you taking the time to speak with
Yeah.
me.
Don,
Uh,
thanks for having me on.
and for our audience, thanks for listening. I hope maybe you've learned something and maybe delve into those AI things and the protection. And so there it is. That's another great episode of Navigating Cyber Risk with your host, John Riley. We hope to see you next time. This was another amazing episode of Navigating Cyber Risk, powered by Omnistruct. Show us some love by subscribing and sharing today. Reach out to us with any comments, questions, or ideas about future shows by emailing us at podcast@omnistruct.com. Until next time, remember, governance is not a technology.